I'm just going to do a quick get ready with me, and then I'm just going to talk about things that I feel like God is teaching me as a Christian and as a single. So I'm just going to do my eyebrows. My low maintenance look is just eyebrows and lip gloss, because I don't have time for let me get a mirror actually. I don't necessarily have time for I don't like to wear makeup every single day. It's long. But anyway, yeah, one thing I feel like God is teaching me in my singleness, or just generally, is I want to be a Christian that is fully devoted to God, someone that fully desires God more than anything. I want to be someone who fully desires God more than marriage and more than anything else in my life. And what I've started to do is I'm really trying to be intentional with my relationship with God more than I've ever been. So when I pray, for example, I'm trying to pray in a way where I'm really thinking God is in this room, God is here with me, God is going to help me, and I feel like I need to take some hair off this, but I feel like I'm just going to leave. I can't be bothered. Oh, yeah. So I feel like I'm trying to really pray, and not just pray like religiously, but pray like in an authentic way where so every time I pray, I think first and I center myself, and I'm like, no, God is in this room. God loves me. His presence is here, and he's sitting and waiting for me, listening to me speak. And that kind of just really puts things into perspective, where I'm like, the maker of heaven and earth is sat here with me in this room. And it's sort of made me really have more of appreciation and pray a bit differently. And another thing I've started to do as well is, it's kind of my second year doing this, is I try to last year I read the Bible cover to cover, and when you read the Bible cover to cover, like, I think there's this lady called Tara Lee Cobble, and she has this Bible recap series. And with her Bible recap series, what she'll do is, it's on the Bible app, and she'll obviously take like chunks of the Bible, and then she'll give a little bit of a commentary on each. So for like different sections, she'll give a commentary on each. And her Bible is in chronological order. So it's in chronological order, and so it's really interesting how the Bible sort of pieces together in chronological order. So obviously you'll end up reading through the whole thing. And then what I've done is I did that. I did the complete Bible in a year. And it's not necessarily reading, you read to understand to a degree, but then for me, I just read it to read it from cover to cover. Then I would stop at very key moments that I really didn't understand, and then do the research. Because if you start to do the research, it will take you a very long time. But the essence is, I've read the Bible cover to cover. Then obviously, as I continue reading it, I can sort of learn, I can sort of really pick out certain sections. But it's good to read the Bible cover to cover to get a full picture of the Bible. And at first, obviously, it's dreary in terms of a lot of the sections, especially the Old Testament. But then after that, this year, I'm reading the Bible again cover to cover, particularly focusing on the Old Testament. If I don't get through the New Testament, it's okay, because I feel like we read the New Testament a lot. And then what I'm going to do is I'm reading the Old Testament, and then I'm going to, particularly books that never get read. That's how I'm sort of taking it, and particularly books where I got lost in. So last time I read the Bible cover to cover, I got very lost in terms of finding a bit too much, finding it overwhelming in Chronicles and Kings, because they're repetitive and it's like the same stories told in a different way. So I got lost in there, but then there's a lot in there. So this year I started again with reading Chronicles. I'm really seeing how the Bible really pieces together. So for example, when you start to read the Bible, you start to really understand how it pieces together, like I said. So for me, what I'm learning this time around is, which I sort of knew but vaguely, is when you have like Kings and Chronicles is the same, but obviously a different way that is written. All of the prophets link to a king. So every king has a prophet. So when you're reading the book like Jeremiah, like Amos, and when you're reading Malachi, they fit with a particular king. So once you've read Kings and Chronicles and then you start to read the prophets, there's a prophet for that particular king or for those particular kings. So you sort of see it piecing together. And then so it's interesting what God is talking about in terms of when you're reading the prophets, and you're understanding why the prophets are saying things that God is made, where God is seeming angry. But the reason why God is seeming angry is if you read what the kings are doing, you're realizing that, oh no, like God is justified in his anger, considering what these kings are doing and the fact that they're worshiping idols, they're doing so many bad and wicked things to the people. And then sometimes if you read Judges as well, you really see the state of Israel. That, I think that's probably, there's a few stories in there that you really see the state of where Israel's at. And you're like, wow, when you read it, there's no, in your heart, you would be like, no, God is just for the way he's speaking to them and the way he's saying he's going to punish them. Because when you read it, you're like, wow, this is heavy. So definitely read it. And then, yeah, so that's what God is teaching me in that sense. I'm trying to learn how to desire God more than anything else. And how you get to know God is through his word and through reading his word properly. I think there's something very key in reading, there's something very, very key in reading entire books of the Bible, especially the Old Testament, because it gets neglected too much. And it really shows you a lot about, how we need to live and why living like the culture is not good. So yeah, that's one of the key things I'm learning with the Old Testament. So I'm going to start my hair. So it's time for hair. I've taken my braids out. My hair has not been washed. So right now it's just water and oil, and then I'll put it in a bun because I don't have the energy to spend one whole Saturday to wash my hair. So it'll be next Saturday that this hair is washed. So this is all that I do to it. Then add a bit of coconut oil, and then that's all. Once I put this hair in a bun, I'll sort of show you what sort of Bible plan that I'm using. I'm not using the Tara Lee Cobble plan because I printed out a Bible in chronological order. And yeah, I printed out the Bible in chronological order. Then I can sort of highlight books that I've read, and it sort of gives me, it's sort of encouraging sometimes when you read the Bible and have like a bit of a plan and it's printed, because you can highlight things, and then when you highlight it, you sort of see what you've achieved, because it's not an easy thing to sort of read entire books of the Bible, especially the really harder books. And it's not easy. It's not easy reading it in that way. And then I also printed out, a guide thing that the guide has. What does it have? The guide has the kings and the correlating prophets, because sometimes it's easy to sort of see which king correlates to which prophet. So you're not just reading a book on the prophets thinking, okay, what are they talking about? What are they referring to when they're talking about certain wars and all of that kind of stuff? And then I also printed out the different kings, because when you read Kings and Chronicles, you'll notice that there's the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. So there's the king of Israel, and then there's the king of Judah. King of Israel and king of Judah, and there's different kings, so they split it. And then that's not easy to follow. So I read that as well. So yeah, that's what I'm sort of doing when it comes to my Bible. And then I also read this devotional called Loop. So it's called Loop for Women, and it's this lady, and she called Jennifer, and she sends obviously emails each day, almost every day, I think, or every other day, or once a week. And it sort of talks, it's writing as if it's God speaking to you. So she's very poetic in the way she writes, and very gentle and tender, if that makes sense. So it kind of makes you really think about how God would speak to us if he was speaking to us directly. It's a bit like Jesus Calling by Sarah Young, which is a book that's quite well known, where it's like Jesus is speaking to you each day, which is really good, because I think sometimes we've taken out the personal element of God, where we don't realize that, God is actually personal. So, she just writes very well. She really writes very well. So what I'll do is I'll wake up, I'll sit down, I'll close my eyes and center myself in terms of God is in this room, God is here, he's present with me. Then I'll read the loop. Devotional. Then I'll read my chunky Bible reading, and then I'll pray, and then I'll do my daily affirmation. So I try to do affirmations in terms of biblical sort of affirmations that I know I need to remember and recite and think about. Okay, sometimes this bun doesn't go the way it should go. It's not going the way it should go. Okay. So yeah, that's what I'll do. So yeah. But once I put this hair into a bun, and then I'll quickly show you the printouts of what I use. So I use this gel. This gel is not good for like gelling your actual hair, especially for the 4C girls. It's good for like small edges. So I just gel this down like this because I just don't have the energy to do complicated edges. And that's what I do. So yeah, I'll leave it like that. Yeah, I'm just a very low maintenance person. I don't have the energy to do a full face of makeup every day. I don't even do a full face of makeup every day. I haven't worn makeup, I don't think, in like a month or 2 months. So yeah, that's that. And then, but I won't take it. So all my earrings. And then now I'll do this NYX lip gloss, yeah. They don't put a lot inside, but then again, I use it each day, so I can't complain that they don't put a lot inside. This is not my favorite color though, because this one is a bit too light, but there's one up that's darker than this one, which I like. So yeah, that's all I do. Let me get the printout and then what I use and what I read from. So I read the Old Testament with the Message, because I think I usually use ESV to read the Bible, but then it's very complicated in ESV. So I use the Message because when it's going into Old Testament Israel sort of stuff, I just need it very simple. So I decided to buy myself an actual Message Bible, because it's good to read the Bible sometimes physically, because at least you know how much you've read, how much you've achieved, because it's not easy reading the Bible cover to cover. And then what I've done is I've printed the Bible in chronological order. So normally when I first did this, I would go through each section. Because obviously if you know about the Bible a little bit in terms of chronological order, it's Genesis for a few chapters, and then it's Job, and then Genesis continues and obviously gets to Exodus and Leviticus. So I would do each chunk, but then this time around I'm doing entire books. So I've done Joshua, I've done Judges, I've done Chronicles, I've done Kings, and then First Kings, Second Kings. So that's what I've done. And then sometimes when I read the Bible on an ad hoc basis, I might just still highlight it so that I know what I've done. And then what I've done here is that the Message Bible as well that I have, it breaks the books out into the different sections. So it will say Introduction to the Book of Moses, Introduction to the History books. So I've noticed that there's some books we always read. So what I've done is I've done the books I hardly ever read, or what I got lost in last time and struggled to really enjoy and understand. So then that's what I've read this time around. And then now I've highlighted, I've put I've written in pencil what I'm going to be reading next. I need to finish Chronicles, I need to do Ezra, and then I've chosen the Book of the Prophets. I struggle with the Book of the Prophets because just the way sometimes it's written and what it's sort of talking about. So then I've highlighted a lot of them that never ever get read, like Lamentations, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah. Those never get read. Malachi gets read a lot. Isaiah gets read a lot, Jeremiah gets read a lot. I've read Ezekiel quite a few times here as well. This is very, very small, but this has the kings and then it has the correlating prophets so that I never like lose track of where I'm at with what's happening. And then I also printed out the different kings based on like when their sons begin to take over. So yeah, that's that. Yeah, so that's what I'm learning, one of the things that I'm learning. And yes, it's good, it's going well so far, and I think I'm really enjoying my Bible reading when I've broken it up into this way where it seems more manageable and I'm reading things that I never would necessarily read. I just want to say that if you watched my my retreat vlog, you would see that these were they got so dirty with the mud, but then I was able to restore them a little bit back to what they were before, so you can sort of see that they're back to normal, which I'm happy about. But yeah, I just basically threw them in the washing machine, then I bleached not bleached, but I used some kind of bleach thing for the laces and stuff, and the laces are basically back to what they were. One thing I'm also actually learning as well is that there's actually peace in resting. I think Still Single is called Still Single because I really believe in the power of the scripture, be still and know that he is God. When it comes to our single season, it's so easy to be busybodying and getting caught up in a lot of things and being worried, trying to see, oh, have I done enough? Am I enough? But sometimes we just need to rest, focus on like desiring God more than anything else and just resting. That's what I'm doing. I'm resting because I'm not going to fuss and fidget anymore. And we all have our different moments. I think sometimes we're in a season of rest, but then sometimes we get very anxious and then we start to do stuff and then we start getting frustrated when we're not seeing particular outcomes. So that's one thing I'm learning is rest, be still and know that he is God, and just resting in him and getting to know him more, desiring him more, because the Bible talks about how if we seek first the kingdom, all these things will be added. All we have to do is seek the kingdom. We don't have to fuss and fidget. When it's I think it's Mary and Martha, and Jesus is like, Martha, you're worried about so many things, but Mary has chosen the good part and it will not be taken away from her. Sometimes in life, when you've got like so much going on, or you're thinking about, oh, how am I? Oh, online dating is like this. People, there's not many guys in church and all of that. You start to think about so many different like scenarios and so many things that could help, you know, with you maybe finding someone. But then sometimes we just need to just lay at God's feet and just sit there and listen to what he's saying to us, just with our own lives and with our own relationships with God, and then everything else will fall into place. That's what I'm learning. Another thing I'm learning is that we walk by faith and we don't walk by sight. So when we're single and when we're dating and when we look at the state of the dating space, we look at how relationships are going, we look at marriage and all of that kind of stuff. We need to not get too concerned about what happens at face value and what we can actually see. Because as Christians, we walk by faith and not by sight. Even if the dating world looks hopeless, there is hope. Do you know why there's hope? Because Jesus is hope and we put our trust in Jesus. When it happens for you, all of those things, they're not going to matter anyway. You're not going to be thinking, oh yeah, you know, the conditions out there in terms of the dating world, the streets are empty, the streets have no good men, all of those things that we tend to think and say, it's not going to matter when it's your time. So why get frustrated on what we can see when our whole life as Christians is not based on what we can see? Our whole life and our whole Christian faith is based on what we cannot see. So why are we getting caught up in what we can see? And why are we having sometimes I'm like guilty of this. We get involved in pointless conversations where we talk about, oh, like this is so bad. We moan, we complain. It doesn't matter, because when it's your time, it's not going to matter. You're going to be on cloud nine enjoying like what God has given you and that blessing, and you're not going to be thinking about all those technicalities. So let's just rest in the fact that God is in control. As Christians, we walk by faith. Faith is not what we see anyway. So, and it's not reserved for situations that look okay and you just stamp faith on top. Faith is meant for situations that don't look good and don't look like they can change. So yeah, that's something that I'm sort of learning as well. So I hope that makes you think a little bit more about, no, actually, it doesn't matter what people say. It doesn't matter if there's so many women in church. It doesn't matter if the church I'm at has no men. Like, it doesn't matter, because we walk by faith and not by sight. So that's the most important thing, and that's what I'm sort of learning in my season. So I'm back from church now, and I'm just putting my hair. This is how I sort of pack it. This is how I sort of put it away. So I'll just twist it like this, and then I'll put it like this. But I'm going to talk a little bit about something church. Really resonated in me in church today, and what resonated in me was someone died at church. And what was quite interesting was our leader was talking about the person, and he said she used to lead youth, and she fought the good fight, but then she died, and he mentioned her name, and I was like, oh, okay, I don't know who that is. And then she put the picture of the person, and when he put the picture of the person, I was like, oh, I never actually met her, but when I used to go to the young adults ministry, she would sometimes speak, and her husband would lead that ministry. And I was just so surprised. And they're a relatively young couple. I reckon they're probably in their early 30s, and they probably have not also been married very long. So they've probably been married, I'm just guessing, at most 5 years, at most. And it made me really think, wow, I always preach this message. I always say this, and I say, we have to focus our relationship on God, because what we have today might not be here tomorrow. I'm sure when they got married, they're probably thinking, planning their future, planning their kids, and planning all these different things. But what is going to sustain him is the Lord. The Lord sustained their marriage. He sustained them through her being sick, and he's going to sustain him through the grief of him now being a widow. And what our pastor had spoken about regarding him was, he said that he's focusing on reading his old sermons and encouraging himself in the things he used to preach to others. It's his relationship with God that's going to sustain him. And yeah, it was just a surprise, because sometimes we live our lives, we're quite young, we have all these different expectations, and life can just be gone in a moment. So we need to just make the most of our lives and make the most of building our relationship with God, so it's able to weather the storm. I'm very sure, once again, that when people get married, they're thinking, this is it. I'm secure, I'm safe, like I've got everything I've ever wanted. But in a moment it can be taken, and it's so sad. And we prayed for him, and we'll continue to pray in church and in our own time. But yeah, that just was a little bit of a reminder of our security, our hope, our trust, our everything we need is found in God, and that can't be taken away from us. So I hope this vlog has encouraged you. So yeah, and you can also put in the comments things that God is teaching you, or you're learning in your single season, or you're learning in general. So now I'm going to wipe my eyebrows off, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Take care. Bye.